statements. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, and we'll start in alphabetical order. So it'll be Jimmy, Pamela, Seth, and Terry. So Jimmy, would you like to unmute and opening statements with 90 seconds?
Thank you. Thank you everyone for having us tonight. In January of 2020, I went to Nancy O'Malley's office and told her I was running for DA. I'm not her choice. I'm running for DA because too many lives have been destroyed by the failed policies of the current leadership. They are the past, and it's time for a future where safety is a civil right we can all depend on. I'm here to reverse the devastation that our community has suffered, to bring back a sense of hope, to lead us to a brighter future, a future where everyone in this community can feel safe and respected. The solution is in our grasp. The titles don't make leaders. Leaders are people who refuse to accept the status quo. Someone who is motivated to be better and to do better. I'm a proven leader. I am respected by my peers for my integrity, for my ethics, and for my compassion. I am the only candidate in this race who has spent the last 17 years in the courtroom handling some of our county's toughest cases, from homicide, sexual assault, child molestation, and human trafficking. I've sat with families of homicide victims and helped them through their griefs. I've talked to children and helped them face the molesters who have hurt them. I've used my trial experience to protect my community. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the only candidate in this race who's trained police officers do their jobs better. I've interviewed judges, candidates for the Alameda County bench. I've worked with ceasefires to get gang members to put their guns down. I've worked with domestic violence victims to help them find housing for themselves and their children. I will keep our community safe. I will do my best to do what's best for Alameda County. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second because I think we want to test our timer again. It was working before, but now I don't see it on the screen. Here we go. Oops, sorry.
Sorry, I'm looking into it. In the meantime, just because we don't want to delay time, Christina, would you mind just timing on your phone? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I will time on my phone, and I'm going to pin, or I'm going to spotlight. Is it pin or spotlight?
Spotlight.
Spotlight. Wait, no. I'm going to pin mine.
I'll just blame it on Mercury is in retrograde, right?
That's what
we young Dems do?
It worked right before we started the meeting, and now it's not working. So yeah, thank you for your patience. So I pinned it. You can switch to gallery view to see all the candidates at the top, including my pin, and I'll try to keep time for you guys. And I will give a 15-second warning and then stop. Okay. So now we can move to the next person.
Okay, thank you. So the next person is Pamela Price. And we'll start the timer when you begin.
Right, I'm trying to get to the gallery view somehow. I can't. Well, I can see all of you all, that's fine. Ah, there it is. Okay. All right, I'm starting. Hi, I'm Pamela Price. I'm running for Alameda County District Attorney because I'm a drum major for justice. And hello, young Dems. It's good to see you all and to be with you. I decided to run because for too long, prosecutors have forgotten that their mission is to protect public safety by advancing justice. Our criminal justice system has done a terrible job in Alameda County with respect to police accountability, racial disparities, youth justice, how we treat and particularly over-criminalize Black and brown children, and how we address people struggling with mental health challenges and drug addiction. I have 30 years experience solving problems, representing everyday people, representing victims and survivors of violence, holding police and corporations and institutions accountable. I'm the only progressive, corporate-free, grassroots candidate in this race who has taken the no cop money pledge. We are working on a future that prioritizes public safety, reduction of harm, and redemption for people who have made a mistake, but who still are part of our community. And so I'm honored to be here with you tonight once again, and hope to have your endorsement and look forward to our conversation. Let's step forward in 2022.
Thank you, Pamela. Next up is Seth.
All right. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday evening. Thank you so much for spending time with the candidates here and allowing us to come talk to you. I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about history. I want to talk about values. I want to talk about policy. This is a historic race. This is the first time there's going to be an African-American in the DA's seat here in Alameda County. First time ever. That said, we want to ask the question is about values. What are the values that we want to bring to the seat? Do we want to bring new values or status quo values? I'll tell you what my values are. I was raised by a single mother, and she raised my brother and I to believe in the values of service, excellence, and fairness. And those are the things that I've done throughout my life. I was a prosecutor in San Francisco, and I tried a number of types of cases, talked with victims that still had bruises on their faces, and I dealt with hate crime victims dealing with assault cases because the defendant didn't like who they loved. I'm a proud Air Force veteran, in particular Air Force Rescue. The motto of Air Force Rescue is these things we do that others may live. That directly translates into prosecution work. I bring that same level of duty and commitment to this job. It's also a teacher. I believe in supporting people at the front end. So it's better than catching folks in the back end. As a policy leader, I drafted legislation banning chokeholds and carotid restraints by the police. Thank you so much, and I'll be happy to talk more about this as we continue.
Yep, and we'll be sure to dive in. So next up is Terry Wiley, 90 seconds. 90 seconds.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, young Dems. You know, I really was looking forward to this because, you know, I know the young lawyers in our current DA's office, they're the lifeblood of the office, and I know that you are the lifeblood of the Democratic Party. You know, we have a district attorney's office that needs new leadership. It has to be leadership that's about safety and justice, and it does not have to be a choice of one or the other. I represent balanced and experienced leadership in this race. This is why I've been endorsed by the nation's leading civil rights attorneys, John Burris, Ben Crump, who represented the family of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor. Lanita Baker, who represented the family of Breonna Taylor, along with Ben Crump. I've also been endorsed by the Oakland NAACP President George Holland, the largest branch of the California's Oakland NAACP. Now, I've also been endorsed by unanimous vote by all 17 police chiefs in Alameda County. And the reason I've been endorsed by such a wide and diverse group of folks is because I represent that balance in the middle. Because, see, I understand that safety has to be of primary importance, because it is important that folks can feel safe and go out of their house and not have to worry about their 2-year-old child being shot in the head while they're driving on the freeway. But at the same time, we have to look at the root causes of crime.
Thank you, Terry. We're out of time. You all have more time to discuss all your ideas in our next section, which will be questions. So this is we'll go in the same order. So it would be Jimmy, Pamela, Seth, and then Terry. And the first question is a 3-part question, and it's about youth. Will youth impacted by the juvenile justice system have a voice in the DA's office under your leadership? What does that look like? What is your vision for youth voice influencing the decision-making process in the DA's office? And again, Jimmy Wilson, you can go first, and you have a total of 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, my candidacy is endorsed by 2 members of the Alameda County Board of Education, Genevieve Cole and Elaine McDonald. And why that's important is because I believe that when we think about the youth and we think about the justice system, we need to get our young people out of the system. We need to find alternatives to incarceration, giving people a record, move people in a way that impacts our community the best. And I've been talking to educators and people out in the streets. When you think about how we get to kids and how we steer them out, the people who know best are the young people who are on the streets or on the ground. So they would definitely be a part of my administration. Thank you.
Sorry, Christina, did Jimmy Wilson have 15 extra seconds or?
Did I?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I just saw a red card and I thought penalty. I thought it was a penalty. That's a
Okay.
No.
I'm fine.
They're pink. So I have one that says 15. Does that actually look the right way to you?
It looks like
Or
a
is it
15, but my son plays soccer, and anytime I see a red card, it's a no-no.
Okay, do we want to just give 15 more seconds?
I'm fine. I've lost my train of thought.
Okay. Okay. So Pamela Price, same question. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. So it's 60 seconds.
Sure. As someone who firsthand experienced the juvenile justice system as well as the foster care system, you will have a voice because I will be the first juvenile delinquent foster kid that's ever served in that seat. And I take that with me because I understand the challenges that young people face as I've grown in my own life and been blessed to be able to get a great education and to know and be taught that education is in fact the game changer. We have a robust plan for youth justice that includes making sure that we don't charge juveniles as adults, that we create age appropriate courts and programs for young people from the ages of 18 to 25, following the brain science, as well as representing and working with community organizations like Youth Alive and Youth Uprising and Genesis and all the different groups, Young Dems across the county that reflect the voices of young people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. Same question, Seth. Do you need me to repeat it? Yes, okay. Will youth impacted by the juvenile justice system have a voice in the DA's office under your leadership? What does that look like? What is your vision for the youth voice influencing the decision-making process in the DA's office?
Absolutely. I thought it was about the youth voice. And this is something that I have on my website at sethstewardforda.com. Create a youth advisory board that includes formerly incarcerated youth, so they can directly impact what's happening in the policies in the DA's office. So that's number one. Number two, invest in youth community groups and listen to those voices so they can provide restorative justice and community-based support to the youth in the system and help make sure that youth don't continue to get into the system. And then finally, partner with the Alameda County School Board and school boards throughout the county itself and districts to address policies and efforts to make sure that we increase the high school graduation rate, because that's the best way to decrease crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Terry Wiley.
So I'm the only candidate in this race that has previously run our juvenile division. And a couple of things. You know, while I ran juvenile between 2013 and 2017, one of our big accomplishments is that we reduced the incarceration rates of juveniles by 70%. And we implemented programs with community works such as restorative justice. I've been endorsed by Wendy Steele, the former head chief probation officer of Alameda County, who, if anybody knows about Wendy Steele, she ran the juvenile or the probation department in San Francisco, and we worked very closely together to put in new programs. And a lot of the work we did between 2013 and 2017 remains today. And the juvenile in Alameda County currently houses about 75 kids, down from 300 when I got there. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, now moving on to the next question. It'll be the same order. How does the DA plan to work with other agencies like Oakland Unified School District or Oakland Police Department to stop the pipeline to prison issue? How can the DA work upstream to ensure Black and brown youth aren't on track to jail? So, Jimmy Wilson?
Yes, this is a big part of my platform. I grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood in Bayview, Hunters Point. And the one time that I got into bad trouble, I should say, the San Francisco Police Department called my mom, and my mom came down to the police station, and then they started talking to her about programs that they had for young Black kids. And one of the programs was they took us to camp. They actually, instead of the gentleman I was with, instead of putting us in the system, they took us to a Camp High Sierra in the Sierra Mountains. And this was like in the 1970s. And for some reason, government has gotten away from doing that. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to partner with our education system and with our police departments. I'm doing community policing out in the community right now and talk to police officers about redirecting kids out of the system.
Thank you, Jimmy Wilson. And I'm going to repeat the question. It is, how does the DA plan to work with other agencies like OUSD or OPD to stop the pipeline to prison issue? How can the DA work upstream to ensure Black and brown youth aren't on track to jail? And Pamela Price, 60 seconds.
I have supported a program that was adopted by the Oakland Unified School District called Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth, which was founded by my dear friend Fania Davis. And I'm endorsed by both Fania Davis, who founded that, as well as her co-founder, Nancy J. Nadell. And so I'm very familiar with their programs and the efforts that they've made to expand the program to the Alameda County criminal justice system and the resistance that they've faced. And I will be a partner with them actively, as well as a program in Oakland called Civic Corps that strives to give young people who may have been system impacted a significant opportunity for a second chance at a first-class life. I've worked with another lawyer there who's a good friend of mine as well. And also, I will hold OPD accountable. Black and brown children are 86% of all felony juvenile arrests in this county. And I intend to break that cycle of incarceration and that school to prison pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela Price. Seth Stewart, same question.
I completely agree that we need to fix the juvenile justice system. Over 90% of the youth that are currently incarcerated in either Camp Sweeney or juvenile hall are Black or brown youth. And so that's something we absolutely need to address. With regard to that, we need to work with organizations like Youth Alive, Youth Uprising, and incredible organizations that are doing the work every day to make sure that we stop the pipeline. We also need to work with the schools. As everybody knows, I'm a teacher. I taught at Oakland Tech and I taught at City College and Merritt College to stop this exact pipeline from happening. I'm literally putting my time where my mouth is because that's where I believe we can get an incredible result. And so I think that it's a possibility for the DA's office to work with school districts to adopt a school to make sure that Castlemont, for example, is as good as Tech. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth. Terry, same question.
A couple of things, when I took over juvenile in 2013, I met with the head of the youth services division of the Oakland Police Department, and I found that the Oakland Police Department had closed the youth services division. So that if you were a juvenile in Oakland, you got taken directly to juvenile hall. Whereas if you were a juvenile anywhere else in Alameda County, you first went to that police department's youth services division where they do an assessment as to whether the juvenile should go home or be taken to juvenile hall. I told the Oakland Police Department, you got 2 weeks to reopen that youth services division and give the kids of Oakland the same opportunity that the other kids have. The other thing I did is I met with the superintendent of the Oakland Unified School District and I said, we will no longer take kids because they got into a fight after school. By the time I left in 2017, we had reduced the number of kids coming from Oakland Unified by 80%. The last thing I would say is that I recently convened a meeting with the Oakland Unified School District, the Oakland Police Department, and the Probation Department, because a growing problem are kids that are truant, because the state. Okay, I guess I'm done.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, this is we're gonna switch it up again, and we'll give, so we'll do Terry, Seth, Pamela, and then Jimmy on this next question. And this is just a simple yes or no question. Are you accepting campaign contributions from any law enforcement agencies? Terry?
No.
No. Seth?
No, and I'm also not accepting endorsements either.
Pamela?
No, and I'm a member of your Democratic Party, and we have said that we will not endorse candidates that accept endorsements or money from police agencies.
Jimmy?
No.
Okay, next question. Same order, so Terry, Seth, Pamela, and then Jimmy. And this question is, what is your stance on the San Francisco DA, Chesa Bowden's work and the recall effort against him? And what do you think the role of the DA should be? And we'll start with Terry.
I think that each county is different. And I think that, I do not sit there and look across the bay and prejudge the issues that he's dealing with in San Francisco versus what we're dealing with in Alameda County. What I do see is that they have a police department that has about 1,500 officers, double the size of Oakland. And I see a level of violence and weapons and crime issues that a undersized police department is dealing with in Oakland in particular. And so our interests are different. So I don't really have an opinion as to what the issues are over there, because they're dealing with different issues than we're dealing with over in Alameda County. What I do feel is that, because of the level of violence and the use of firearms in Oakland in particular, you have to have a healthy dose of pragmatism in dealing with a lot of the issues that we have to deal with.
Thank you, Terry. Seth, same question?
If I remember the question right, it was about what was happening in San Francisco, right? Not here.
What is your stance on the San Francisco DA's work and the recall effort against them? And what do you think the role of the DA should be?
I consider myself a progressive DA, and I think that a lot of the work, a lot of the policies make sense. With regard to the recall, I don't have a stance on it. It's hard to tell. What I would say is it's important to be able to give a person an opportunity to see if their policies work and see how that happens. And I think that's really important and critical. I see a note that said, didn't Seth work in the SFDA's office? Absolutely, I did. I was hired by Kamala Harris, and then I worked for George Gascon. I never worked for Chesa Boudin. So.
Thank you, Seth. Pamela Price, same question.
I am part of a wave of progressive prosecutors across this country that's working to transform the criminal justice system, and Chesa Boudin is a member of that. I support him in his leadership. I supported him in his race for election. I stand in solidarity with the San Francisco Democratic Party against the recall as an anti-democratic, Republican-funded recall effort. I think all Democrats should understand that and adopt that position. And I'm sure that we will do so if it's appropriate at the Alameda County Democratic Party Central Committee, as well as what I believe is the role of the district attorney. She is a minister of justice. Her job is to address crime, both from a preventative measure as well as holding people accountable and leading the diverse communities of Alameda County. And I think that there is a unique opportunity for the district attorney in this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Jimmy, same question.
I can tell you that when it comes to Chesa Boudin, there's some policies that he has put in place that I'm really in favor of. I grew up in San Francisco. I grew up in Bayview Hunters Point, which is, when I was living there, it was ravaged by crime, and my parents still have a home there, and it's still crime is really high, and people are concerned. I believe whatever policies you put in place have to have public safety in mind. And thinking about how that relates to Alameda County and San Francisco, that people living in the flatlands want the same kind of justice as people living in the hills. So if traceable James policies are done with that in mind, then I will embrace anything that anyone does. But it's all about public safety to me. It's all about being safe. It's about our kids and our mothers and fathers and our grandmothers being able to walk the street at night and feel that they will always be safe.
Thank you, Jimmy. This will be our last question of this section. And the question is, every DA in the Alameda County's 169-year history has been a white man, except for our current DA, Nancy O'Malley, who is a white woman. Regardless of who ends up winning this election, our next DA will be the first Black DA. Should you win, what would that reality mean to you? And we'll start with Jimmy, Pamela, Seth, and then Terry.
Well, it's, for me, is historic in that I did not grow up in the DA's office. This is my second career. I was a union plumber, Local 38, raising my kids in Alameda County. I actually served on 5 criminal juries, the last one being a murder case. In that murder case, when I was sitting in the panel, there were only 3 Black people in the room, the 2 defendants and me. And when I think about our criminal justice system, I feel how tragic that is, that you have a system that has been dominated by white males and people in the community haven't had the opportunity to participate. So when I look out among my fellow candidates and I see their faces and I think about what's gonna happen, what will be, it makes me proud to live in the community that we live in.
Thank you, Jimmy. Pamela?
Obviously, I am a Black person. I'm also a Black woman, which means I may bring a particular perspective and life experience. It's very different from the other candidates. I'm the only mother and grandmother that's actually raised children in this community. And that gives you a special perspective on education, on violence, on policing. And as you all saw, have hopefully witnessed with the confirmation hearings of our hopefully first Black woman Supreme Court Justice, Black women face particular insults and degradation. And in California, it's no different. Black women are less than 6% of the population, but we are almost 30% of the women incarcerated in this state. And so for me to be in that position means that I have to be, as I've always been, an agent for social change, an agent for progress, an agent for people who have no voice or who have been overlooked and demeaned and diminished. And for me to be able to stand tall in that seat, I think will make Alameda County bigger and better and brighter. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Seth?
It's exciting. It's incredible and it's historic. Is exactly what I said in the opening. We have an opportunity here to make a huge difference in what happens in Alameda County, and I'm excited to be in the conversation and to push the conversation where it needs to go. I talked to Kim Fox. She is the state's attorney, so the prosecutor in Chicago, and what she said is that the communities most impacted by the criminal justice system trust it the least. This is our opportunity to build trust, to fight racism, to fight bias. We know that Black men are incarcerated here in California at 10 times the rate of white men. We also know that last year, according to PBS, it was the most deadly year for transgender people. And we also know that Asian hate crimes went up 107% last year. These are all things that we need to fight. And I look forward to taking this fight to the people and to make sure that crime goes down and safety goes up. This is a historic opportunity to talk about our values, to talk about what matters to us and how we can make a difference. And I look forward to making that difference, and I'm going to need your help to make it with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth. Terry?
You know, this is a really a historic time in Alameda County. You know, when I started in the DA's office, I started with Kamala Harris, and I remember there were many days in our early years where when you looked at the district attorney's office and we saw nothing but white males at the top. The DA was a white male. The chief assistant was a white male. And we talked about how one day we wanted to change that. Kamala went over to San Francisco and was the first African-American woman to become the district attorney of Alameda County. And as I've grinded, and I use the term grind, over the last 32 years, I've been grinding in the DA's office to try and break down those ceilings. I was the first African-American in the history of Alameda County to be the hiring DA. I was the first African-American in the history of the DA's office to be the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm the first African-American in the history of Alameda County to be the chief assistant district attorney. So I have many firsts, and I did it through grinding, determination, because I wanted to change the office that I saw when I got there in 1990.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, so now we'll move on to our second section, which is we asked each of you to provide us with some questions that you wanted to ask your peers, the other candidates. So we'll start. We'll do Jimmy, Pamela, Seth, and Terry. And this is the first question. Do you have a specific plan for reducing violent crime in Alameda County? And sorry, this is going to be like 60 seconds as well.
Starting with me.
Yes, Jimmy.
Well, I can tell you right now, crime is out of control because there is no crime suppression unit going on in the county. Right now, there are several individuals who are out there committing violent crimes, shootings, robberies. They are attacking people. There are hate crimes going on, and there's no actual response to it. And what I will do is I will create a crime suppression unit that will be directly communicating all around the county with information on who these players are, what they're doing, and how we can stop crime from rising the way that it is. I will also train police officers on how to do their jobs better. That's really important. If you're gonna drive down crime, police officers have to have the tools and the ability to drive down crime and to direct it in those areas where it's needed the most. That's not happening now, and it will happen under my watch.
Thank you, Jimmy. Pamela, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the question is, do you have a specific plan for reducing violent crime in Alameda County?
Yes and no. When I represented the first female homicide detective in Sacramento County in 2005, I learned through working with her and her partner that there's something called a homicide solve rate. And the homicide solve rate in Oakland, since at least the time that I asked in 2005 and up until now, has been approximately 30%, which means if you kill someone in Oakland, you have a 70% chance of getting away with it. That has nothing to do with the district attorney. That's the Oakland Police Department and its failure to be able to solve crime. The Livermore Police Department did an excellent job of catching a gang of people who were stealing catalytic converters and tracking them down to where they were sending our parts out in another part outside of the county. And so my plan is to work with each police department in this county and ensure that they are maximizing the resources that they have, that they're targeting the kinds of what they need to do to bring down violent crime.
Thank you, Pamela. Seth, same question.
I'd say two main prongs. Number one, focus on violent crime. And then number two, expand alternative courts and diversion for the long-term approach. So we need to stop the bleeding right now. We've had 134 murders last year, and we've had an increase, I think, triple the size number of shootings on our highways. And so these things need to stop. And the way to do that is to focus on gun violence to make sure that's number one. Number two, to make sure that our DAs have the resources that they need to be able to prosecute the cases, make sure that the paralegals are there, the investigators and the legal secretaries, so they have enough and they have lower caseloads to be able to manage the cases that they have. That's number two. And number three, we need to implement common sense gun laws, making sure that, for example, ghost guns are banned throughout the county as opposed to just in the city of Oakland. So I worked on that law, got it passed here in Oakland, and we need to have that county-wide to make sure that ghost guns and ghost gun kits are no longer there. Finally, we need to make sure that we stop the stream. We know that alternative courts have lower recidivism rates. So let's reduce crime in the system itself by lowering recidivism rates and expanding access to alternative courts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth. Terry?
It's funny, Mr. Stewart mentioned Kim Fox. Me and Ms. Fox serve on the American Bar Association's Criminal Standards Committee. So we spend a lot of time talking about the crime problem, but I looked at DA's offices around the country, and the one office that I found that was effectively dealing with the sort of issues that we deal with in Alameda County was the Manhattan DA's office. And they use the Crime Strategies Unit, which is a unit that focuses on those individuals that are driving most of the violent crime in a particular on the island of Manhattan. And when Manhattan implemented that program in 2010, they saw about a 60% drop in violent crime to the point where New York City was called the safest big city in the country. What I plan on doing is implementing the Crime Strategies Unit, that we will put a unit together that is a data-driven, intelligence-driven unit to focus on the 1,751 individuals that are driving 80% of the violent crime in the city of Oakland in particular, but throughout the county.
Thank you, Terry. This is also another question from one of the candidates. And we'll start with Terry, then Seth, Pamela, and then Jimmy. And the question is, are you dedicated to fully funding and implementing effective re-entry programs for the formerly incarcerated? And how does that look in practice?
Well, in practice, we have 4 members that are formerly incarcerated that today work in my office, and I'm their direct supervisor. Well, I shouldn't say their direct supervisor. I supervise their direct supervisor. And it has been an amazing what has happened. I mean, we got individuals that, one, it took us a year to get him into the office because he had so many issues that we had to help him work out. And these individuals are making living wages. We have seen their skill level improve dramatically over the last 8 months that they've been in our office. And I can tell you that one of the individuals was previously convicted of a homicide in the 1970s. And this is an individual that we trust, who is an amazing addition to our office. So, I think you have to put your money where your mouth is. And we're very committed to reentry. And that's why we have 4 members that are formerly incarcerated working in the DA's office.
Thank you, Terry. Seth?
And this is a really important concept. A lot of people, I think, when they think about the criminal justice system, you just think that we're just going to put people in jail and they're just never going to come out. Well, probation, parole, eventually, for the most part, most people end up leaving, whether they're in prison or whether they're in jail, and they need to re-enter into society. And the programs that we have are necessary for their success. There's a statewide, there was an opportunity to have a statewide re-entry program that failed. There is a re-entry program in San Francisco. They do an incredible job there in terms of making sure people have the resources that they need to be successful, to not go back to the life that got them in prison in the first place. We need to definitely, I support those programs, those organizations, and we need to make sure that we have as robust programs and robust funding for those programs as possible, because it's critical for that population to be able to not only participate. And thank you so much. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Seth. Pamela?
Yes, I have committed to establish a reentry commission, which will look at how we fund our reentry programs, how we partner with community programs. I look forward to partnering with programs like All of Us or None, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, Community Works West. I've worked in the past and served as pro bono counsel to a program that specializes in reentry in Contra Costa County called Men and Women of Purpose, that has an extraordinary success rate of helping people, bringing people home. The Young Women's Center for Youth Development, or the Center for Young Women's Development, is also one of my little organizations that I support, and I work with Courage. So I know that we have to fully fund and invest in reentry programs and community-based organizations that support people coming out of the system. My view is that if DAs can incarcerate people, as we have done in Alameda County at an alarming rate, then we have a responsibility to bring those folks home safely and bring them back to the community. That's our responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy?
I grew up with parents who were involved in the community, involved in the Bayview Hunters Point community. My dad worked with former incarcerated individuals and helped them in job placement. He was able, muni drivers, he was able to get former incarcerated people into muni jobs, into jobs in the community. What's really interesting, when I was a plumber, I was working next to a gentleman who was formerly incarcerated, and I never knew it. And he told me he went through a program, a community-based program that helped him. I believe that if you want to stop that prison revolving door, you have to give people the opportunity to change their lives. The only way to do that is through reentry. I believe that we need to give people training in vocational areas, give them job training when they're coming out of prison, to where when they get to wherever they're going, that there's something stable that they can hold on to. I believe that we need to fund community programs that are geared towards the former incarcerated. I've been in the DA's office for 17 years, and we are failing. And that is public safety. When you give people options and you give them the ability to change their lives, that's a way of getting to public safety.
Thank you. Are we good on time to do one more of the candidate questions, or should we move to the Q&A, Christina? One more question?
Yeah, one more
Okay.
question is fine.
Okay, thank you. So the last question for the candidate, these are the questions that one of the candidates asked. What, if anything, have you done in the past 10 years to reduce police community conflict in Alameda County? And we'll start with Jimmy.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now. I am an executive board member with the South Hayward branch of the NAACP. We have a post-certified program where we're going around the county talking to police officers about community policing and implicit bias, trying to get officers to get out of their cars and to understand that they need to be guardians in their community, not warriors with the people that they serve. I have been doing this. Right now, we're on our 6th police agency. We have talked to them about, and when we talk to them about how to interact with people in the community, especially Black, brown, and poor people. We talk to them about how to unengage, how even after you make an arrest, you have to move from the arrest to care, taking care of that person, trying to change the way that they handle our community.
Thank you, Jimmy. Pamela?
I've been blessed to both sue police officers and represent police officers. So I've been engaged in conversations with many officers, both local departments, including Fremont, as well as Oakland, as well as across the state in Sacramento and different agencies around the state, where I have been able to be in conversation with officers and try to, talk to them about what the trust that why people don't trust police and what we can do to make it better. I've also financially supported a program in Oakland called Men of Iron, which is founded or started and mentored. It's a mentoring program for young men that's under the leadership of one of the Alameda County deputy sheriffs. And I've helped support that program so that those young men will have a positive view about law enforcement. And basically they can find something that is redemptive in the regiment of it. So that's what I meant.
Thank you, Pamela. Seth?
I drafted a law banning chokeholds and carotid restraints by the Oakland Police Department to make sure that they can no longer do that following the death of George Floyd. So we want to make sure that people are safer. You can make what they were doing at the time illegal. That's what I did. In addition to that, I also teach criminal law at Oakland Tech because I want to talk about what does reasonable suspicion mean? Educate our young people about what does probable cause mean? What is reasonable suspicion to stop, probable cause to search, probable cause to arrest? We need to have these conversations. And then finally, I've also served, and I currently serve as a scholarship chair on the Peralta College's Foundation Board, where just last year, we raised over $185,000 for young people to be able to continue their educational opportunities at Merritt College, Berkeley City College, College of Alameda, and Merritt College to make sure they have an opportunity to be successful and engage in criminal justice in a different perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth. Terry?
Yes, well, first of all, as a district attorney, we're lawyers. And so where we instruct the police is on the law and the fact that we want them engaging in constitutional type policing. But there are also things that you can do. So when Michael Brown was murdered in 2015, I created a program called Know Your Rights. And this is where we were going into the community doing Know Your Rights presentations. And the initial reaction of law enforcement was hands off, didn't want to participate. But then they started hearing the impact that the program was having on the community. And so we did myself and Dinah Beckton, the DA of Cocoa County, did a Know Your Rights program in which we had law enforcement go into breakout sessions with the community. And what the community said, this was the first time I talked to the police without them arresting us. And what the police said was, this was the first time I had contact with the community without it being a police situation. So we fostered greater understanding between law enforcement and the community. And it's programs like that that we want to continue.
Thank you, Terry. I know we started, thank you all for all those questions and submitting them. I know we had a little bit of technical difficulties. I just wanted to check with all the candidates if y'all had a hard stop at 6:30.
I have a hard stop at 6:30. I got to go to another session.
That's okay. So sorry, let me check with our timekeeper. Are we still good to do our audience questions?
I think we may not have time then for audience questions. So why don't we go to closing statements?
Okay, so the closing statements will go in alphabetical order. So Jimmy, Pamela, Seth, then Terry, and each candidate will have 60 seconds. So starting with Jimmy.
Oh, thank you. Safety is a civil right. That means that you have the right to be safe in your community. Alameda County is my home. I've lived here for 36 years. I've raised my children here. My wife and I both work at Alameda County. I attended Laney College and received an undergraduate degree from Berkeley. I've been 17 years in the DA's office, as I said, trying some of the toughest cases that you can imagine. People in this community know me. People in the legal community know me. I'm endorsed by educators, by congressmen. I'm endorsed by city council member Mark Salinas, Sarah Lambden, Rick Jones, Luis Freitas, Mayor Alan Nagy from Newark, members of the Board of Education. I'm endorsed by police officers and I'm endorsed by defense attorneys. People who can't agree on anything, but they agree on me. They agree that I'm the right person for this job because I do my job the right way with integrity and ethics. I thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Pamela, closing statements?
Thank you for having us tonight, and thank you for coming into the space and for your involvement in each of your clubs. It's so important. I'm the secretary of the Oakland East Bay Democratic Club, and we really appreciate it when we get new members and younger people. That you all are the lifeblood of the Democratic Party. So thank you for being here. I am I believe the best qualified person who can bring change to this office. And there's no question that every person running today recognizes that there needs to be change. I'm the first person to run for this seat since 1966. And the question before you is, how can you expect someone who has participated, profited, and prospered in a broken system to fix it? You should not. You should, in fact, support the movement for change, for social justice, for equity, for racial justice that has come to Alameda County finally. And you should continue to press and to demand that each of us engage with young people and reflect the needs of young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Seth, closing statement?
Thank you so much for having us, Young Dems. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. I want to say that change is needed, and we can either continue with the status quo, or we can make substantial change based on our values. I'm asking you to join me and make change in Alameda County with the values of service, excellence, and fairness. As district attorney, I will make sure that we prioritize thoughtful, reasonable change. We're going to stem violent crime, expand access to alternative courts. We're going to address the root causes of crime regarding poverty, and we're going to make sure we hold law enforcement accountable. We're going to fight racism and bias, eliminate the death penalty, and expand victims' rights. My name is Seth Stewart. Please go to sethstewardforda.com for more information, to donate to our campaign, to get out and walk a precinct with us, to make some phone calls, and to have a house sign. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I humbly ask you for your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth. Terry, closing statements?
Thank you. Well, Young Dems, I got to tell you, I've really enjoyed tonight because I just love seeing the young folks who are the lifeblood of any organization, and you guys are the lifeblood of the Democratic Party. I think when you look at all four candidates in this race, I think you have to look at our experience. I think one of the reasons I've gotten so much support from the civil rights community, from all of the police chiefs, is because they all understand that I've been doing this for 32 straight years. I haven't run for the assembly. I haven't run to be mayor of Oakland. I haven't run to be the DA. I haven't run for all those offices. I've been grinding in the DA's office to try to make this a better criminal justice system, a more fair system. And I definitely wanted the DA's office to look different than when I got there, when it was all white males running the whole show. I wanted to be part of the policy making and the decisions by the district attorney's office. And I am the most qualified person in this race because I bring balance, I bring independence and experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And that concludes our forum for the DA. Please stick around as I pass it on to my colleague to moderate the sheriff forum.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Young Dems, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to suggest before we move on to the sheriff forum that the candidates drop in their information into the chat so that if you have questions or want to learn more about them, you can do that. Thank you. Go ahead, Rowena.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Stewart, Ms. Pamela Price, and Mr. Terry Wiley for joining us. We really appreciate sharing the space. And so thank you for that. And so before we transition into the next hour, I wanted to just kind of emphasize that just for those who joined maybe a little bit later, If you have any questions in regards to our if you're eligible to vote for the various club that you are a part of, feel free to reach out to either Ruben, Lance, or Richard via the Zoom chat to check your eligibility. And then at this time, we will transition into the Alameda County Sheriff Forum, where we have 2 candidates, I believe, that are here. Yesenia Sanchez, who is currently the division commander at the Alameda Sheriff's Office, as well as Joanne Walker, who is a veteran police officer. For this part of the forum, I will be handing it over to Lance Quan, who is the president of the South Alameda County Young Dems, as the moderator. And then additionally, we have Caleb Smith serving as the timekeeper for this section of the forum.
Before we begin, is anybody actually named Joanne Walker, but named incorrectly on our Zoom, because we cannot seem to find her name to pin?
And as we wait for, just in case she's joining shortly, I did want to uplift our amazing partnership also with Faith in Action East Bay. We're so grateful that you all are here with us during this forum as well.
Sorry for the awkward wait, y'all, Zoom problems and connectivity. At this time, we'll probably give it like another 3 minutes for her to try to log in. And if she doesn't log in, we'll just carry forward with Ms. Sanchez. All right, so just give us a moment.
May I suggest it might be a good time to recap our voting procedures for anyone who's just joined us for the Sheriff's Forum?
Absolutely, I can do that. Go over the details. Okay, so for the East Bay Young Dems, eligible voting members will receive an email via OPA vote immediately following the meeting, and you will all have 1 hour to complete that vote. For the Latine Young Dems, the vote will be via an anonymous Slack poll, which you will be able to do immediately following this Zoom meeting with 1 hour to complete that vote. And then for the South Alameda County Young Dems, members will receive an email immediately following the meeting with 24 hours to complete the vote. And then once again, if you have any questions, feel free to, you can Zoom chat Richard for the East Bay Young Dems, or Ruben or Lance.
Update. Ms. Walker just got back to us and she is planning on joining. She just doesn't have the link, so let me send it to her really quick and then we can get started. Thanks, Ms. Sanchez, for your patience.
And then I guess while we wait, I'll drop the link in the chat just in case we have any new potential new members who may want to join our DEM clubs. So maybe we can do that. We welcome you and we're grateful to be sharing this space with you all.
I see that James has a question. Never mind. James, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hi everybody. Great form. I have a question for anybody that can answer this, but how does if I've attended an event before, can I join today and be eligible to vote?
And you're talking in regards to East Bay Young Guns, correct?
Oh, yes, in regards to EBYD.
Yes. Yes, yeah, I just dropped the link to pay your membership dues if you haven't already paid those. If you've previously attended East Bay Young Democrats between 3 weeks and 1 year before today, you pay your dues, then you are eligible to vote in this election. Please just direct message Richard. Oh, and you also, of course, have to meet the 14 to 35 year age requirement. Key qualifier there. If you do all of that stuff, if you just signed up as a member today, please direct message Richard so we can make sure you get a ballot. Thanks, James. Good question.
Since we are still waiting for Ms. Walker, I'm just going to go over the general agenda of how we're going to be asking questions. We're going to be giving candidates a 2-minute time for their opening statements and 2 minutes to answer any questions that are being asked. We have a question bank of at least a couple of different questions there right now. If there are people that are interested in asking questions for a Q&A that we don't cover during our question bank, you can go ahead and start writing in the chat now, and we'll try to amalgamate it all together and try to see how much we can, get asked during this time frame. All right. And then for closing, we will give a candidate a minute each towards the very end.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to in-person forums.
So since we're still waiting, I just will say that you make me feel old because I don't qualify to join the club. But I guess there's a reason for the limits and why it's called East Bay Young Dems.
Actually, the Young Dem Charter started for the Young Democrats of America, and the California Young Democrats is our state, and then it branches out to every single different little branch in our area. So East Bay Young Dems, Latine. Dang it, I'm never going to get that name right.
Latine, like an E, kind of like an EH at the end.
Teamwork.
Young
Right?
Democrats of East Bay, and then South Alameda County Young Democrats. I swear I will get it right one of these days. It's not today.
We always appreciate the opportunity to partner with those who are young at heart.
I'm just curious, does anyone know if or why Young Democrats created the 35-year-old cutoff? Like, I'm wondering if there is some data showing, because I know that one of the primary tenets of a lot of Young Dem clubs is that it's to engage the younger generation in the political process and to vote, because usually that group, that population of people is less likely to vote. So I'm wondering if they looked at specific data to decide on that age limit.
Wikipedia being our best friend. It looks like we were founded back in 1932. So it's civil engagement, and then they probably picked 35 because that's after 35 is the first year you're eligible to become president.
Thank you, Lance. Celine, I like your suggestion about extending it for 2 years because of the to pretend the pandemic didn't happen. I like that. Hey, Richard, do you know if we have any updates?
Yeah, sorry. Can we just go ahead and get started? I think out of fairness to Ms. Sanchez, who showed up on time.
Sure. So Ms. Sanchez, you have 2 minutes to basically introduce yourself. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for having me today. Good evening. My name is Yesenia Sanchez. I was born in Hayward, where I attended public schools. My father immigrated from Jalisco, Mexico to Oakland when he was 12. My mother is from San Antonio, Texas, and she came to Oakland, California when she was 6 years old. I am married and have 3 stepdaughters. Before being hired onto the sheriff's office, I worked 3 jobs, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 at a used car lot in San Leandro. At night shift, I worked Oakland Airport between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning, several days a week for Federal Express. And on the weekends, I was working at McDonald's doing shift work. During that time frame, I was living mostly out of my car, kind of hopping couch to couch wherever I could lay my head. So I was lucky enough to get a sheriff's office job, entry level at 19 years old. Since then, I promoted up the ranks in my 25 years. So I've been blessed with the ability to have worked a variety of assignments, including patrol, investigations, jail operations, and administrative assignments. And I've supervised in those roles as well. Being a 25-year agency member, I have already established strong relationships with our agency managers, county partners, which will allow me to hit the ground running. You cannot shift the culture of an agency as large as the Alameda County Sheriff's Office alone. It must be in partnership. The partnership and those relationships are built from trust and credibility, and this does not develop overnight. So I look forward to your conversation and our questions tonight. Thank you.
Great. And it looks like Joanne Walker has joined us. So Joanne, you have 2 minutes in which you can do your opening statement, and you just made it for opening. Ms. Walker, you need to unmute yourself though.
Okay, here we go. All right, can you hear me now? Okay, I didn't get the link, so I apologize for my lateness, but I'll go on and get started. My name is Joanne Walker. I'm running to become the next sheriff of Alameda County. I have a host of things that I've done throughout my life and my career. I'm a 40 plus year resident of Alameda County, very concerned about what I see and hear happening and things that have happened in the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. What qualifies me? The fact that I'm a 27-year veteran in June, at least it will be 27 years. I've had a host of assignments while working with the San Francisco Police 26 years now. One is field training officer, academy instructor, a CIT person, hostage negotiator certified, a person who believes in community-oriented policing, person who works very hard with the community to build and develop trust and understanding. I am an award-winning community-oriented policing person from the United States Attorney General. I received that in 2016. An award-winning crisis intervention trained officer. I received that in 2015. For the past 6 years out of the 7 years I've worked, I've gotten noticed and acknowledged for the work that I do in the community. I believe that you shouldn't wait until there's a critical incident to develop relationships with people and community members and other law enforcement officers, as well as other law enforcement agencies and non-law enforcement agencies, because it takes all of us to solve problems. It takes all of us working together to effect change. If you want true change, then you should vote for Joanne Walker. The reason why I say that is because I bring quite a few skills with me. I have been a instructor at Cal State East Bay for over 27 years. I have worked with a very demographic who has invited me to come in and speak this evening. I've been there for over 27 years, so I kind of understand what the pulse
right.
of young people may be. So I'm here to introduce myself
All right,
and to
Ms.
give you an
Walker, that
opportunity
is
to learn
time.
about my campaign. Thank you.
Okay. First question, we're gonna snake back and forth between the two of you since it's the only two of you, so that's actually makes it a little bit nicer for myself. The first question is, and starting with Ms. Walker, in April of 2020, two San Leandro officers failed to de-escalate a situation and killed Stephen Taylor while he was having a mental health episode. In April 2021, Mario Gonzalez was murdered after being pinned to the ground by an Alameda police officer for over 5 minutes. This, of course, is in the context of the murder of George Floyd back in May 2020. What do you feel needs to be done locally to ensure that no Black or brown lives are killed due to police brutality? Joanne, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I am someone who believes in training, and please let me know when I'm halfway done so that I can wrap it up before the end of the time. I believe in community-oriented policing, as I said in my opening statement. I know that you cannot develop trust with any community member unless you are in their face. What do I mean by that? I mean, you've got to get out of your cars, you've got to greet people, you've got to let people know that you're there to protect them. Also, training is very important. Training regarding the behavior of human beings is very important, and it must be ongoing. You can't provide training 1 year and then don't talk about racial injustice, social problems, behavioral problems, mental illness until 2 years later. It must be ongoing, and it must be a criteria that comes from the top down. In other words, everyone should buy into community-oriented policing because it works. It doesn't work if we show up and the
1
community
minute.
feels, thank you, and the community feels that we are just an imposing power who just comes to tell them what to do. We must listen to people when they tell us that there's a need for us to change, to have a different vision about the way we handle people in our community. We must listen to them, follow the Constitution. Everyone has a right to be treated with dignity and respect, and we must put that into our mantra and into our training so the officers who are working in law enforcement understand that and apply it in every situation they face. Thank you.
Thank you. Yesenia?
So I think that's a great question. It definitely has to do with training. You have to revisit and be open-minded enough to revisit what training is being shared and disseminated between your agency members. Because if we have constant actions that are being taken across the nation by our law enforcement officers, there's definitely got to be a deep dive as to what training is leading them to take the actions that they're taking, which are resulting in loss of life. And a lot of how those situations occur and evolve is there's that separation between how we encounter and engage our community members and the mindset and approach that we have. And when I speak to that, I mean to engaging and talking to people as human beings. And you can see that law enforcement has, in some respects, lost sight of that. They're definitely going by that muscle memory and the training and going for the target. So we definitely have to do a deep dive on training and why our agency members or law enforcement as a whole are taking those actions, but it definitely has to do with policy, the mindset, and the culture in the agency. And I am committed to partnering with organizations from the outside, third-party organizations, such as the Center for Policing Equity, to analyze racial disparities in policing within our agency. And so this organization analyzes data to identify indicators to whether inequitable practices are at play within the agency, what portion of identified racial disparities are likely to have resulted in police behavior, and conditions that may play a part in these practices. So if there are any instances when racial profiling can be documented, rest assured that those offenders within our agency will be dealt with, and there would be consequences.
All right, the next question will go to Ms. Sanchez first. So the question is, how will you tackle sideshows, and other forms of criminal activity that cross city boundaries. So Yesenia, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, definitely.
Interrupt just real quick. Would the candidates prefer I use the phone for the timer, or would they prefer I use hand signals?
I
Hand
like the
signals will
Post-it
help.
notes. Who's got the Post-it notes? I like the Post-it notes.
I'll not use that. Sorry, thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to the question, as far as sideshows, they're definitely a problem. It's a problem that is affecting every city, but to different levels and to different degrees. And we definitely have to partner with our community members who are experiencing these sideshows in their neighborhoods, because it's not only occurring in main avenues and thoroughfares, it's occurring on residential streets where children are playing, where people are walking their dogs. So there's definitely a problem, and there's definitely a call for a focus and more of a focused effort. And when I say that, there's partnership that has to occur with that. We need to be partnering with our California Highway Patrol, our city leadership, as far as law enforcement agencies, and seeing how we can come together to bring as much or as many resources as we can to tackle the sideshow problem. Because as you have seen and very likely have experienced yourselves, there's a number of cars and people that come, and we're talking about hundreds. So that's something that is massive, and it requires not only just one city PD, but it takes a county effort to tackle that for sure. So that is something that I have already started discussing as far as partnering with our law enforcement, and not only our law enforcement partners, but our community elected leaders within the cities. So everybody has to engage in that conversation, as well as including our community members on how we can address that. And we're going to have to rely on our communities to let us know when this sideshow starts to grow. We need to tackle that early on. As we see the cars coming in and the people starting to gather, we need to get to it before it becomes something that is, for lack of better words, uncontrollable.
Ms. Walker, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. After reviewing the responsibilities of the sheriff, sideshows is not one of those things that come up in the information that I've gotten, any information that I viewed on the internet, anyone that I have spoken to. However, I want to say this. In order for anything to occur where there is a consensus on what law enforcement should do, especially since the sheriff is responsible for the unincorporated areas of Alameda County. In the unincorporated areas, we are the police. So in that regard, sideshows are important. It comes to my purview, and there is something that I should do about it. In terms of finding a solution, one would be to partner with other agencies to set up a plan so that we know what we need to do in order to prevent these sideshows from continuing. But we're not going to find out about the sideshows until they're already in place. So the way to do this is to use social media, find out who's talking about what, where these activities are going to take place, and then start setting up our plan for how we're going to make sure they cannot continue to host those or participate in the sideshows. The other thing is that's just one prong. The other prong is talking to other agencies, making sure that they're with us and they understand what the challenges are so that we can, as many agencies as possible, can get together so that we don't step on one another, with a plan so that we can figure out what we're going to do about it. We shouldn't wait until there is a sideshow. We should do this ahead of time. There should be supervisors involved. There should be, if we're going to tow the vehicles, we need to network with the community-based organizations who can help us so that we can stop it. We know that it's dangerous, but we also need to educate, and we educate the young people in junior high and high school, and we let them know this is not what we want to do. Thank you.
All right, the next question on our list, starting with Ms. Walker. The Alameda County Sheriff's Office currently has a contract with a commissionary and a vending service that guarantees $500,000 in sales for the department. In comparison, the San Francisco County Sheriff's Office does not profit from sales at all and also has made phone calls free. If elected, would you continue the current arrangements that the Alameda County has or move to more or move more towards a model that does not profit off of incarcerated people and their families.
Okay.
Again, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so I am on the outside of the Alameda County Sheriff's Department, and I want everyone to be real clear on my position. I will not know what is going on until I'm elected and I get a chance to take a real good look at the budget. So I need to start with the budget, do a top-down research and itemization of what we are spending money on and where we are profiting. And then I need to check, do a little bit more research to find out what is happening in areas around me and how the model they're using for making sure that our incarcerated get the needs that get their needs met through the vendors that we seek. If there is something that is abnormal, out of the norm, something that I know that I have an opportunity and the authority to change, then the next step would be to set up a plan and to talk with our community-based vendors, see who is available, see what they would like to happen, see what they can offer, and then see how that matches the vision that I have for moving forward in the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. But it takes research. It takes just a little bit of time to check to see what's going on around me. So I know that when I decide to make a change, that I have asked the stakeholders and we come up with a plan and then I execute after that. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Sanchez, you actually have 2 minutes for this question.
Yes, absolutely. So I definitely know exactly who you're talking about. We have a vendor who provides phone services as well as video streaming, music, movies, and they do have a significant charge that, as we know, families are the ones that incur those costs behind services that are being provided in the jail, and in respect to phone calls and listening to music and whatnot. So, and video visitation. So they are very costly, and I definitely do agree with that. And one thing that I do want to have a conversation with our Board of Supervisors about is if the county is willing to take on those costs. And the reason why the calls are free in San Francisco is because the county has absorbed that cost to pay for the calls and whatnot when it comes to at least phone services. So there definitely is an issue that I do take with the revenue that is built off of and the profit that is taken off of those who are incarcerated, because it not only affects the incarcerated, it affects their loved ones, their friends, and their family that are paying for the services that they are enjoying. So it is something of a conversation that I will be having with the Board of Supervisors when I take office, as far as would the county be willing to take on those services and us move away for the for-profit contracting, and also by supporting the staffing to allow for facilitation of the services that we do pay for based off of the revenue that does come to the sheriff's office for programming, because that is where the revenues go into an inmate welfare fund, and the inmate welfare fund is utilized specifically for programming and for any services that are directed towards the incarcerated, including some staff and staffing. So, but definitely a conversation I will be having.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Earlier this year, inmates at the Santa Rita jail went on a hunger strike to draw attention to the poor conditions. Do you agree or disagree that the conditions in the county jail are unacceptably poor? If you disagree, why? And if you agree, what issues are the most pressing, and how do you plan to improve on those conditions in the county jails? Starting with Ms. Sanchez.
Definitely. So the great question. And I do believe that we need to make some pretty good improvements in the jail. We do have adequate services that are being provided, but when you measure adequacy, is it quality? And with respect to the hunger strike, I can speak directly to that. We have a number of individuals who did not care for the quality of food that was being served by our contract provider, which is Aramark Food Services. And so taking that into account, and also taking into account what I've seen being served in the jail, I've definitely been, since I've been assigned to the jail, having conversations with our contract partner, Aramark, to provide a fresh food option to our incarcerated. Now, these discussions have been ongoing for a number of months. We are finally getting to a point where we have presented to the Board of Supervisors as far as what we're serving now and what we could be moving forward with. And the Board of Supervisors have heard this presentation from Aramark. And I believe that we have some buy-in, and I know that we have buy-in from the Board of Supervisors because they know that fresh food is definitely a factor when you're trying to provide healthy meals for the incarcerated or any individual that's living in our county or in our communities. So that is something that is coming. That is something that will be a big success for me. And definitely these changes do not happen overnight. It does take partnership. It does take established relationships, and it does take a lot of work and time to make things go in the right direction. And we are moving forward with those efforts.
Ms. Walker, you have 2 minutes.
Yes. One of the things that I do know, because I am the station keeper in San Francisco, and I'm the one who makes the decision on whether or not a person who has been arrested is going to be transferred to the county jail after making sure that I check them and they are able to go into the regular population without a problem, ensuring that their medical needs are met. In terms of eating, it has been not just contested, but featured in the newspaper about the dissatisfaction that the incarcerated have about the food in Alameda, in Santa Rita jail. This is nothing new. And this is something that's been going on for quite some time. So I'm a little perplexed in why it's taken so long and why this is now coming up during the campaign for sheriff. People have known for quite some time because of the lawsuits that have come up that this has been an issue. And so to say that, I want to correct that problem, talking to the Board of Supervisors, getting them on board, I would think that after the consent decree was signed last year, that the Board of Supervisors are on board and they want to see some changes made because of the numerous complaints that people have regarding the issues surrounding Alameda County Sheriff. So I am all for meeting with the stakeholders and ensuring that we can get started on this sooner than later. It is a big deal for people not to have rat poisoning or whatever other things that are found in their food. They've complained about it. The newspapers have written about it. The journalists have written about this. This is nothing new. We should be able to take care of this with the right partnership, with the right plan, and it should not take another 5 or 6 years to handle. We should be able to do this quickly. And that's one of the things that I would definitely make sure that I address when I become sheriff.
Okay. The fifth question is going to go to you, Ms. Walker, first. As a follow-up with the previous question, the Santa Rita jail is currently facing a lawsuit due to the lack of mental health services, which has led to multiple suicides. The consent decree drafted last year calls, among other things, for a better continuum of care for people who spend time in the jail. Please describe the steps you will take to improve the continuity of care for people coming into the jail and returning into our community.
Okay, first of all, I want to say that I will follow the guidelines set up by the consent decree. I am the only candidate who has dealt with a consent decree because when I initially entered the San Francisco Police Department, they were under a consent decree. So I understand both sides of it. I understand that people have to be taught that new folks coming in or a new change or a change of any kind can be positive, but we all have to have a similar vision. In order to do that, you have got to rally your people, meaning the people who are working within the county jail. Let them know that this is where we are. We're going to follow 21st century policing and strategies, and we're going to implement them in everything that we do. Currently, because I do work as a station keeper, I know that Title 15 is contains the guidelines that we use for the care of those people who are incarcerated. I need to find out if there is a policy about the way we handle people at Santa Rita Jail. If so, are we following the policy? If the policy is inappropriate, we need to make the necessary changes. I also need to know if people are trained appropriately. If they're not, there needs to be training. If they are, then I need to talk to those people who are supervising the deputy sheriffs. Are they supervising them appropriately? And if they are not, we need to make some changes. I say that because I am a volunteer crisis support counselor through Alameda County, and I've had a relationship with them for the last 10 years. So I know what it takes to talk a person down, to identify people who are suffering from mental illness. And if we have deputies working for the Alameda County Sheriff's Department and they don't know what to do, we need to train them so that we can make sure that we address the needs, the medical needs, and the mental health needs of our incarcerated before we put them into the regular population.
And that is
Thank you.
time. Ms. Sanchez.
Yeah, so the consent decree does have a focus on mental health treatment. We definitely have been lacking in the jail, and I'll argue that I've been involved with this consent decree since I stepped into the jail, and been part of that negotiation team and the team that develops the policy and how we follow the new practices that we will be following moving forward. So it's definitely there's some key points that this consent decree focuses on: mental health, identifying and addressing ADA issues, such as those who have learning disabilities or developmental disabilities. And of course, also increasing programming and time people spend out of their cells. So mental health services and added programming for the incarcerated is key to a rehabilitation. And being able to capture proper assessments from each individual will help develop a plan for services while they're incarcerated and lead to a discharge plan to follow that individual out when they're released from custody. And that's where we've had gaps. And that's where I've found in working through this consent decree and working with our partners in AFBH, our adult forensic behavioral health team, as well as our medical provider, on where those gaps are. So those gaps are still definitely there. And we need to make sure that we are partnering with our community-based organizations, such as ROOPS, where when someone is released, we can direct them into an organization that can make sure that they get transportation. Because sometimes we have people drop off from services and the care that they're getting inside the jail, and they drop off because they never make it to their next step. And that is key. So working with our partners, it's definitely not going to be a sheriff's office only effort. That's where we've failed so far, thinking that we can do everything ourselves and not partnering with individuals who have that expertise, such as our mental health providers out in the community, and working with our justice partners to make sure that those that are coming into incarceration, suffering from mental health, are housed and diverted outside into navigation centers that provide housing and services in-house. And I'm committed to fulfilling everything that consent decree offers, as well as
but we will circle back to this literally right in this next question right now. So the next question is going to be: homelessness is a major concern in Alameda County. What will you do to reduce homelessness amongst people who are recently discharged from the jail, or are on probation, or how are re-entering our communities, including those with mental health issues?
Yes.
Would you like me to go first?
Yesenia's would be first in this one.
Okay.
Gotcha. So yes, it definitely ties into what I was just discussing. Working in partnership with our justice partners and working with the Board of Supervisors in identifying funding to ensure that there are navigation centers that can house individuals that don't belong in jail. And I think we can all agree that those folks who are suffering from mental health issues and even substance abuse issues, where they're committing crimes just because of their illness or the circumstances that have brought them to homelessness and whatnot, they're all tied together. So definitely partnering with individuals who have the expertise, including making sure that our mental health providers inside the jail, our medical providers inside the jail, working with Alameda Health Systems too, because our Alameda Health medical partner outside, they work with the community, and those people who we see come in with acute ailments are seen by our community and our county health provider outside. So we definitely need to focus on having some type of not temporary shelter, but kind of an all-inclusive shelter that will address individuals who are there in-house, because we know that if they are there getting those in-home services, I guess if you would, they're more likely to become stable, continue on with treatment and whatnot. But we definitely have to fill those gaps to make sure that they get from point A, which is incarcerated, and out through by transportation, by partnering with our community-based organizations to get them from point A to point B. But it's definitely going to be a team effort. If you truly want to reduce crime and provide a safer environment, we need to treat those underlying issues. And that's where the partnership with the DA's office, Public Defender's Office, and our Judicial Council is going to come into play. But definitely the Sheriff's Office, when I am the sheriff, will be partnering with those entities. And I would be open to shifting resources the Sheriff's Office has, as long as it doesn't negatively impact our ability to be able to provide law enforcement or quality law enforcement services to the community. Thank you.
Right. Great. And Ms. Walker, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, what I want to say is that these are problems that have the Santa Rita Jail and the sheriff have been dealing with for many, many years. This is nothing new. The issue is that the people have spoken. They have said, hey, look, you have got to change things. Our loved ones are dying in your jails. The loved ones who have died so far didn't get a chance to get that second chance where they go somewhere or meet with a community-based organization, so the community-based organization could then guide them to where they need to go. One of the challenges that occurs when you're dealing with people who are suffering from a mental illness, especially as adults, is that you can't force them to do anything. That's where the counseling comes in. You got to get them to buy into the fact that this is something that's going to make your life better. But sometimes in the very beginning, when they're withdrawing, when they don't know where they're going to get their next meal, when they don't know what's going to happen to them in terms of housing, they cannot concentrate on kicking that habit because they don't have anywhere to live. So connecting them with services is very important. Following the information that is in the consent decree is critical. Where are we going to house them? We need to put them someplace where they are at least safer than they have been, because we do know that they have died in the Santa Rita Jail. We want to stop that. In order to stop it, we have to provide the services that are necessary to help stabilize them. You cannot stabilize a person who does not buy into it mentally and emotionally. And so we have to work on that. And we do that with a variety of different partners, a variety of different stakeholders. And we don't take the lead on something that is a mental health issue that another community-based organization or a medical health healthcare professional can do better. So talking to all of the stakeholders, making sure that we're following the rules and the regulations is very, very important. And we need to remember that this is going to be a challenge and we need to help people.
That will be time, Ms. Walker.
Thank you.
All right. The next question is for both of you, starting with Ms. Walker. Same as the question that came in the DA forum, or similar at least. In every sheriff in Alameda County's 169-year history has been a white male, including our current Republican sheriff, Sheriff Eric Heron. You are both vying for to be the first person of color and the first woman to represent the county in this office. Should you win, what would that reality mean to you, Ms. Walker?
The reality is that I didn't run because I'm an African-American woman and I wanted to be the first. I ran because I believe I'm the best person for the job. I have been preparing for this for quite a few years. I have gone through a lot of training in order to prepare myself to be ready to assume the position of sheriff should that come about. My goal is to make sure that I am fair with people, that I how it looks going forward is that I am a person who believes in community and community policing. That's the way you build trust. So it doesn't matter what ethnic group you are. What matters is your vision. I have the vision for the future as far as I'm concerned. And I know that in order for my vision to be realized, I have to include the community. It's not about me. This is much larger than Joanne Walker, the person. This is about making sure that we stabilize people so that we have real public safety. When you destabilize families by allowing people to die in the jails, people never forget it, and they walk with that trauma for the rest of their lives. I really want that to stop. And in order to stop that, we've got to do some things differently. In order to do things differently, we have to have a different vision about the way Alameda County looks moving forward. So for me, representation is very, very important. If you never see yourself in a position where you are the authority, then you just feel like you're invisible. African-American women, we are not invisible. We are people who work very, very hard to ensure that our families are safe, our children are safe, our community is safe, and we've been out here for a very, very long time. Many times we've been ignored. Our cries fell on deaf ears. Now things are changing, and I happen to be right in the middle of it. So thank you.
All right, and Ms. Sanchez, 2 minutes.
So I'm gonna make it short and sweet, and I'm just gonna call it out because Latinos and Latinas, especially Latinas, are deeply underrepresented at every level of elected office. So Latina leadership is transformational, and when elected, Latinos are powerful change makers, fighting for their communities. And that goes for all people of color who have historically been unrepresented and underrepresented in our elected offices. So it's all about breaking through glass ceilings, baby. I mean, here we are in 2022, and we're talking about voting in the first person of color into the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. All sheriffs to date have been white males. And if you go to a fundraiser for the incumbent, he'll show a poster of all the white males that have held office before him. And it honestly, in my opinion, is just a shame that that is something that is a proud reflection of the agency, because I think it's disgusting. So I am grateful to all those who have paved the path before me. I have looked up to individuals who have sought that path, and I would be honored to continue the path forward and inspiring others to do the same, because I know how much it means for our youth to see themselves in positions of elected office, of positions of leadership, and it shows that they can be someone who can guide our nation, their communities. But I mean, you start small with local office and you can grow to being the Vice President of the United States, right? So definitely something that I'm proud of and to represent. And I hope I can continue to motivate and inspire others to do the same.
Sorry, my janitorial staff just walked through and I'm still at work, y'all. So
I can hear them.
Yeah, so my bad. We're going to go into our first set of Q&A questions. Circling back to the very first question that we had asked y'all, in 1992, Rodney King was beaten with batons while supervisors, fellow officers, and other agencies have watched and did nothing. The same scenario happened with George Floyd, except Mr. Floyd was killed in 2020. As an expansion to the first question of the night, we know every candidate wants to change things. Looking at the history of our past and into now, what can we do now that we didn't have access to in 1992? And what would you like to make sure that gets incorporated now?
Which one?
Starting with Ms. Sanchez.
That's a great question. And we definitely are living in a world of technology. And I don't know if anybody has ever listened to the CEO of Axon, he's the one that developed the taser, the electrical weapon, or the conducted electrical weapon. And the reason why he developed that weapon is because he was trying to, and is still continuing to try to look for alternatives to firearms. When you're talking about law enforcement response, he is hoping to eliminate firearms in response. Now, most in law enforcement would say that is absolutely impossible, but I think we need to open our minds to it. And, you know, there's definitely a number of things that we have on our tool belt now that we did not have in the 90s. And some law enforcement agencies don't have them now, but we should be looking for tools that have the least effect of physical harm, physical damage on an individual to be able to gain control of a situation. So those are definitely things that I will be looking towards. There are definitely a number of items out in development right now where we could potentially pilot. It is something where we definitely have to bring in, other entities that I spoke of earlier, as far as the organization where they're looking at our data to make sure that we are policing equitably and making sure that we are not, we don't have any, how do you say this, but like white supremacy embedded in the agency and how they're dealing with our people of color in their communities and whatnot. So those are definitely efforts that I'm going to be bringing forth. Data is key to growth and acknowledgement of where we're at and where we need to be. And that is something that is key to training and identifying some of our gaps and how we fill those gaps. So I will be committed to bringing in an organization to take a look at our policing methods for sure, and making sure that those incidents do not occur in Alameda County Sheriff or in Alameda County through the Sheriff's Office.
I did the mute unmute thing. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Ms. Sanchez. Ms. Walker, you have 2 minutes to answer that question.
Yes, I want to say, first of all, that in order for change to occur, you've got to get in with the people and you got to hear them. African Americans have been talking about this for many, many years, especially right after slavery. This isn't anything new to our community. So moving forward, what can we use now that we didn't have many, many years ago or during Rodney King, and definitely when we saw the murder of Mr. Floyd on television? 21st century policing strategies is what many agencies are using now. They're wrapping their arms around it because it's about treating people with dignity and respect, especially people of color. So how do we do that? How do we move law enforcement from where it is to where we need it to be? It's training, it's education, it's appropriate supervision, and it's a change in policy. And you have to hold them accountable. So in my campaign, one of the things that I talk about it's called ARC. A is for accountability, R is for reform of the criminal justice system, and then C is for community oriented policing and building trust. If we're not out there with every segment of the population, making sure that we treat them fairly, making sure that they know that we care enough to do the right thing when someone's watching and when someone is not. Having a taser, if your mind is not for using the taser at the right time when you should use it, then guess what we see happening? We've already seen officers who have used the taser and they taser the person more than once. So the question is, what can we do to help the officer? We help the officer by educating, by making sure that there is proper training, making sure that there's adequate supervision, and making sure that the expectation is clearly stated. So everyone who knows if they violate it, there are consequences for violating that. We're not going to sweep it under the rug and act like it didn't happen. We're going to address it, and we're going to make sure that everybody knows what we want to do and what our vision is moving forward. And then we also want to educate the community. We want them to know.
That would be time.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This is going to be the final question for closing statements. For closing statements, we're going to do a minute each, just so you know. Okay.
Okay.
So this last question of tonight, community safety and crime have been on the minds of many citizens. Do you believe in no money bail or $0 bail for all crimes? If you're not for that, what would you want to see changes in our cash bail system, or what changes would you like to see in our bail system? Ms. Walker, you have 2 minutes.
I'm going to make it very, very clear and very easy. Simply put, that is not the responsibility of the sheriff. That does not come under my purview. I do not handle cash bail. I don't do that. No sheriff does that. That comes from another office. So my thought about how I feel doesn't enter into it, because as a law enforcement officer who is the sheriff of the Alameda County, my job is to make sure that everyone who comes through our county can live, play, and be healthy and enjoy themselves while they're here. If they're in Santa Rita Jail, my job is to make sure that they don't die in police custody or in the sheriff's custody, that there are rules and regulations that we follow to ensure that we are dealing with their needs before they come into the jail, so that they are safe and the rest of the population is safe. This is a nonpartisan position. So my thoughts and feelings about things don't come into play. What comes into play is whether or not I'm following the Constitution, whether or not there are adequate rules and regulations and policy available, training and supervision. And if there is someone on my team who is not operating at the level they should, I need to pull them from the team and give them the help that they need through employee training or employee programs, so that we can get them to do their job at the level that we need. But we have to make sure we treat everyone with dignity and respect. That's it.
Okay, Ms. Sanchez, 2 minutes for you.
Yeah, so as far as the cash bail and having a zero bail system, I definitely believe that we should be evaluating, those who have a bunch of money are able to bail out, as opposed to those who do not come from wealth. But also, we also have to take into account victims of the crime that people are being held account to. So it is definitely a balancing system, but it's definitely something that needs to be evaluated on individual, case by case basis. And violent crimes definitely very likely will not be afforded that zero cash opportunity because of the possibility that an individual is still a little overheated and may go out and commit even further harm to community members. So there definitely is a one size or not, there's not a one size fit all for the cash bail system. And I think that that is the same approach that we should be having for when people are held accountable for their crimes. There should be an individual assessment for individuals who are committing crimes and what led to them putting themselves in that situation to commit crimes, whether it's their education, lack of education, whether it's their environment that they're growing up in, whether they have support at home or whatnot. So each individual has a reason why they continue to either commit crimes, recidivate, or whatnot. And that's where we need to take more time to address those issues and be able to provide a way and a path out. And that is built into our justice system as a whole. It definitely is. There's definitely some cracks, big cracks, to be honest with you, but we definitely have to work in unison and with some common goals to ensure that people are given some skills. And I say skills, not basic education, but we need to get people into careers. And that's where I've been in discussion with our trade partners, our labor partners, as far as bringing apprenticeship programs to. Okay, thank you, sorry.
No problem. So both of you will have a minute for closing. Ms. Sanchez, you will be starting first, and then Ms. Walker.
Great, thank you. So I am the first sheriff's candidate to receive endorsements from local Democratic clubs. I've been endorsed by Tri-Cities Dems, Democratic Forum, Castro Valley Dems, and the Wellstone Democratic Renewal Club. I am the only candidate to receive the endorsement of the Building and Construction Trades Council, the NUHW, our health workers, and other labor groups. Other notable endorsements include Assemblymember Bill Quirk, Board of Equalization member Malia Cohen, BART Director Latifah Simon, mayors in Berkeley, Emeryville, Oakland, and council members from those cities, as well as Albany, Berkeley, Hayward, Oakland, and San Leandro. All of you have an opportunity to make a difference and be a part of history. And we spoke about it earlier as far as being the first person of color, a Latina sheriff in Alameda County. You will have a hand in this. And I thank you for the opportunity. And I thank you for the time.
Great. Ms. Walker?
Yes, my goal, thank you very much for inviting me. I want you to know that my goal is to bring balanced leadership, legitimacy to the position of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, to protect immigrant communities, to improve inmate services at Santa Rita Jail, to establish working relationships with leaders in identified segments of the community, to apply 21st century policing strategies to reduce inmate fatalities, establish systems that promote diversity at all levels of the Sheriff's Department, improve training regarding the use of force and mentally ill and emotionally disturbed persons, and to invest in technologies that improve operational capability and effectiveness. From the time that I entered the San Francisco Police Department, I have been an agent of change to help change the culture, change for addressing people who are in our communities. I have been endorsed by quite a few organizations, the Wellstone Club and others, and people right in the community who believe in the vision that we've discussed. I want to thank you for inviting me here. And I want you to know that change starts from the moment we set foot in the department. It doesn't take a campaign for
Thank
someone
you.
to say it's
Ms.
time to
Walker,
change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for attending our forums for both the DA's race and the sheriff's race. We have now reached the end of it. So Rowena, did you want to circle back on the voting methodologies for all the clubs?
Absolutely, I can do that. And so as mentioned, Lance, I just want to uplift. Thank you so much, Miss Sanchez, as well as Miss Walker, for taking time out to speak with us. And we are so grateful for the time. And so